back again for another video. Today's topic will be maturity and immaturity, but I want to talk about it in a sense of how can I say purpose or intent. I want to talk about it with intent. My intent is to explain that masculinity should be viewed very differently than what we commonly view it as. Same thing with femininity, but I'll go with masculinity first, because most people view masculinity as it's either you got it or you don't kind of thing. And I tend to disagree with that, because no two men's masculinity are the same, ever. They're not even comparative. Even with women, they see that men's masculinity is a specific brand all to their own, and it can never be replicated in another man. Sure, there are some things that we do that are similar, for instance, protection, providing, leadership, stuff like that are similar, but the way we protect is very different. The way we provide is very different. Thus, the masculinity is very different. But I want to dive a little bit deeper into the understanding of masculinity, as far as the way I see it anyways. So, like I said, masculinity isn't a thing whether you just have it or you don't. I believe it is a subjective thing, but it's not so subjective that you cannot distinguish it from one another, from person to person. So, I have my little list of, my big list, because it encompasses all men in my opinion. But I have my list of men, and all of them have masculinity. Yes, even the simps have masculinity. Now, a lot of people would be like, oh no, simps is, but we say it all the time. If you listen to it on our language here in the manosphere, we say, men with low masculinity. We don't say men without masculinity. I don't believe there is a such thing. Testosterone in itself, I believe, produces the birth of masculinity. So, unless you're completely out of masculinity, or testosterone, then I don't think you fall in that category, no matter how much of a simp you may be, or how much of a so-called alpha you may be. Once again, these things are subjective. But anyway, I don't want to get into the subjectivity of levels of masculinity per se. I want to get more to the defining of it, because that's what I mostly do. I try to figure out a way to explain the reality that we experience collectively in a way that is universally understood. So sometimes I don't account for things because I'm not a genius, I guess you can say, in social psychology. So there are things that I do miss, and I do appreciate the people who help me fill in the gaps for those things. So any of your comments, I do read. I read everything, the little comments I get. But another thing, share my video, please, because I'm pretty sure that someone can benefit from it. Pretty sure, because I'm not here talking negativity. I'm not here talking about how to put anybody down or want to criticize anyone in a way that is not constructive. Though I may talk about simps, though I may be talking about women, this is all to get you to realize what the problem is, because the first step of recovery is acknowledging problems. My opinion, many other people's opinion. So anyway, masculinity. I tend to look at it in terms of mature and immature and wise. These different levels you can clearly see in different men. Even here in the manosphere, we have so many thousands, hundreds of thousands of videos collectively. So we have a lot of knowledge to give people, but people can soak in this knowledge all they want. It's to me, masculinity is a practical thing rather than a technical thing. And I think that's the problem with expressing it to men, because they technically try to apply the technicalities of attaining masculinity to their lives, and most times they fail. Why? Because masculinity isn't the individual masculinity. Individual man's masculinity isn't a repeatable thing. It's not something that you can just up and decide, hey, well, I'm going to work out like this guy does. I'm going to tell women this like this guy does, and I'm going to live my life this way like this guy does, and automatically I'll be as masculine as he is. That's not how it works. It's not how it works at all. So it isn't a technical science, something that is repeatable. It's not something that you can put into a scientific method and get the same results every single time. It's not like that. It's an experience-based thing. It's not something that is just plug and go. But mature, or I'll start with the levels. Immature masculinity. I will say that there's usually a correlation of age range for these things, but it is not indicative to there being some anomalies, or there not being some anomalies, because there are men who mature a whole lot faster than others, and there are some who are well undergrowth with their maturity. But usually, from my experience, what I've seen is that the immature masculinity is from a young toddler's age, because I think personally I believe that young toddlers show a certain level of masculinity is just at an infant state, compared to the overall understanding of masculinity. But it goes from that state, or that age, all the way up until about 15 or 16. This is when a man starts to hit his intermediate masculinity. And how you can differentiate the two is because usually with a starting out masculinity, a immature masculinity, he won't have many principles. He'll be just mimicking. He'll just do what he sees other people do. This is the reason why a lot of young adults, especially men and black men, they're easily influenced by what they believe is a man with better or higher masculinity than them. So they imitate what they do. They don't necessarily have any principles of their own. They pick up what other men do. That's how you can tell a man who has a immature masculinity. Now let's go over to the intermediate masculinity. This is where a man starts to cultivate his own principalities. He starts to experiment. He starts to say, well, this is a rule that I carry with myself. Sometimes these rules are passed down, definitely, because for a long time, I'm pretty sure a lot of you, and I don't tend to disagree with it, because I have my own reasons why. You heard that a man should never hit a woman. Now, a lot of people would say, oh, that's so simpish, and that's this and that. Like I said, I don't tend to disagree with that, because there are certain unintended consequences that come with that will relinquish you of your power. And you know how I am. I'm very against a man giving his power away to a woman, because there are many other ways that you can handle a woman and defeat her, either her feminist ideology or her bad behavior, bad nature, whatever you want to call it. You can defeat it without even lifting the finger. So but on other instances, I kind of agree with it. So I'm leaning more towards not doing it, because there are not a lot of reasons that you should, but there are reasons that you should. For instance, like if a woman is trying to physically harm someone, if she's putting somebody's life in danger, yes, that is a time that you can physically stop her from committing. If you can prevent someone from dying, possibly. So in those instances, I do agree with it. And I think that should go universally, men or women. If someone is in danger and someone is at a threat, yeah, definitely. But anyways, don't want to get into that topic on this. I came to talk to you about the levels of masculinity. Anyway, so the intermediate masculinity, it has its infancy stage of trying to or excuse me, not its infancy stage, but its beginning stage of trying to cultivate its own personal structure for the individual who is wielding the masculinity. A lot of men are stuck here because they are taking things that they heard from old, and they are not applying it as possible as they should, and then they have no ability to really cultivate really good principles for their own selves, because principles are in line with masculinity. You know, a man of high principle has a high level of masculinity. That's usually how it works. From my experience, this is my personal anecdote. From my experience, you know, a man who has a set of rules that he follows for himself, this is a high level of discipline. Disciplining yourself is a high level of discipline. He usually has high masculinity. But the intermediate does not have a high level of ability of creating principles for itself. And then you have the master masculinity. I think I want to rename that, but I'm gonna just call it that for right now. Master masculinity, or excuse me, I know what I call it. I call it the mature masculinity. Sorry. The mature masculinity. The mature masculinity is when a man is able to cultivate on the fly principles for himself, and has principles that he has practiced for many years. And these principles are sound, meaning they actually work, meaning that it's not something that he just came up with and, you know, he's trying it for the first time. Also, it includes principles that were passed down. So it's a stack. If you notice, it's a stack of things that grow. You know, because that's what happens when you mature. The accumulation of who you are now is based on what you take from your experiences and how you apply them, and your ability to cultivate things selected for your life specifically that better it. So mature masculinity is one that does all the stages that below it and a little bit more for its current ability, which is partly starting to master the ability to create and maintain principalities of how one should conduct itself as a man. The next level is what I call the wise maturity. Wise maturity is one that has been doing this for so long that it is now become set in stone. There is not much movable about how that man operates and what that man does, how he deals with people, women, men, whatever, children. It's the same way across the board all the time, and it has a high level of success of being the right thing to do, meaning that it gets the outcome that is desired in regards to how masculine men handle circumstances, people, and situations. So but not a lot of men traverse these levels correctly. And in these levels, you will find that they coincide with the list that I gave before, with the 4 types of men. Of course, the highest, but they're not. They're almost sliding a little bit, because the actual what do you call it? The actual wise masculinity. Excuse me. It's bike week, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, the wise masculinity and the mature masculinity, the motorcycles kind of throw my thoughts off. Excuse me. The wise masculinity and the mature masculinity, they kind of fit in the monk and true man category, because a true man can have wise masculinity, because once again, you reach a certain masculinity and it sticks when it comes to the wise masculinity. But when you go down to the betas, the simps, you know, the F boys, they have usually a infant baby like masculinity, or they have a intermediate masculinity. That's the reason why they're able to pull just a little bit of things that they're able to pull off with women, because women are drawn and attracted to masculinity. I think I'm going to chop this video up for now, because I want to talk about femininity and its levels of immaturity and maturity, because I think that's important to discuss. I'm not a subject matter expert on it because I am not a woman, so I cannot instruct or even deconstruct a lot of femininity. I just know it when I see it. So my language may be a little bit off when describing it, and it'll cultivate and it'll grow as I can produce more videos and listen to other people. Then I can incorporate more ideas that universally discuss how femininity should exist. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like, comment, and share, of course. If you enjoyed this video, please leave me a comment. If you didn't enjoy this video, leave me a comment anyway. I don't, I read all this stuff. I'm not one above constructive criticism. So that has been my video. I hope you enjoy it. May you have a good day, and peace be with you.